My sister-in-law got a miracle baby and went crazy, demanding that I don't let my baby into her wedding because the only baby that should be getting attention is hers. And when I said no, she pulled this crazy move and tried to kidnap my daughter. Now guess who's spending their wedding day at the jail? I've been married to my husband Lucas for the past 5 years. We met through a blind date set up by our mutual friends. I have to admit I was a bit skeptical about the whole idea of a blind date at first. The thought of meeting someone I knew nothing about and trying to make a connection seemed daunting. But from the moment I met Lucas, there was something between us that just clicked. What started as a casual evening turned into something much more significant as we began spending more time together. It became clear that we shared a connection that went beyond the surface. There was a natural ease in our conversations, a comfort in each other's presence, and a growing list of things that we found in common. It didn't take long for both of us to realize that what we had was special. Our relationship quickly grew from casual outings to something deeper and more meaningful. We started talking about our hopes, dreams, and the future that we wanted to build together. Eventually, after months and months of dating, we decided to take the next step and get married. Surrounded by our closest family and friends, we pledged our lives to each other in a heartfelt ceremony. Our wedding day was filled with so much love and joy. I can still recall every detail of the day, the look in Lucas's eyes as I walked down the aisle, his brother Kyle cheering us on as his best man, the laughter of our family and friends, and the feeling of pure happiness that enveloped us that day. Truly, it stands as one of the happiest days of my life, a moment when everything felt right, and the love we had for each other was celebrated in the most beautiful way. Right from the start, both Lucas and I had always wanted children. From the early days of our relationship, we had discussed becoming parents, and it was a dream we both shared deeply. We imagined a future filled with the sounds of little feet running through the house, the laughter of children filling the rooms, and the joy of nurturing and guiding a new life together. However, as much as we longed for it, the journey to parenthood turned out to be much more challenging than we ever anticipated. For what felt like an eternity, we tried everything to get pregnant but were unsuccessful. We meticulously tracked my ovulation, planning every aspect with hope and anticipation. We made significant lifestyle changes, and both of us gave up drinking and smoking habits we knew could affect our chances. We committed to regular exercise, becoming almost religious in our approach to fitness. We also took a hard look at our diet, making sure we were eating all the right things to create the best possible conditions for conception. But despite all our efforts, the result was always the same. Month after month, we were met with disappointment. We couldn't understand why it wasn't happening for us when we were doing everything right. Eventually, we decided to seek medical advice. We both got thoroughly checked out, hoping for some kind of explanation or solution. But when the results came back, the doctors told us that there was nothing wrong with either of us. They said everything looked perfectly normal and that sometimes it just takes time. Their advice was to be patient and trust that the process would work someday. Hearing that was both a relief and a source of frustration. On one hand, it was comforting to know that there wasn't an underlying issue preventing us from conceiving. On the other hand, being told to just wait and see felt so uncertain. Patience, as they say, is a virtue, but it's not an easy one to practice when you're waiting for something you want so desperately. Lucas and I continued to dream about the day that I would finally see that positive pregnancy test and how we would celebrate that moment. As luck would have it, last year, our patience finally paid off. It started with me missing my period, which wasn't entirely unusual. But then I began to feel sick in the mornings, and at first, I didn't think much of it. Life was busy, and I just brushed it off as stress or maybe a little bug. But then my best friend Vivian heard about my symptoms. She immediately sensed something I hadn't dared to believe yet and rushed over to my place with a handful of pregnancy tests. When she showed up at my door with those kits, my heart started racing. Could this really be happening? As I ripped open the first kit, both Vivian and I were shaking with excitement. I was already crying, and the mere thought of finally being pregnant overwhelmed me with hope and joy. And then it happened, the test confirmed it. I was pregnant. I remember staring at those 2 lines in disbelief. Vivian and I started jumping up and down in joy, screaming and hugging each other as the realization hit us. We couldn't believe our eyes. After all the months of waiting and hoping, the moment had finally arrived. That evening, I knew I wanted to make the moment just as special for Lucas. My husband had been on this journey with me every step of the way, and I wanted the news to be a memory that we would cherish forever. With Vivian's help, I planned a sweet little surprise. We decorated the living room with balloons and bought a small cake to celebrate the news. It was simple but perfect. When Lucas came home from work that night, he was immediately puzzled by the festive decorations. He laughed, asking me if I had somehow mixed up the dates and thought it was his birthday. I just stood there smiling, trying to contain my excitement. Instead of answering him, I simply handed him the pregnancy test. It took a second for him to fully register what he was holding, but then I saw the realization dawn in his eyes. His expression changed from confusion to shock and then to pure, unbridled joy. He yelled in excitement, and before I knew it, he had swept me off my feet and was spinning me around in a hug. After everything we had been through, all the waiting and hoping, we finally had the answer we had been longing for. We were going to be parents. Throughout my pregnancy, after every appointment with my gynecologist, I would come back home beaming with joy, clutching the latest ultrasound picture of our little baby. I would immediately place them on the fridge with our magnets, creating a growing collage of our journey. Every time I walked by, I'd glance at the images, and it would fill my heart with so much happiness, a constant reminder that our little Cece was growing and thriving. Lucas and I spent a lot of time preparing for our daughter's arrival. We took on the task of decorating the nursery together, carefully selecting colors, furniture, and little decorations that would make it a warm and loving space for our baby. We went shopping for baby clothes, each tiny outfit a testament to the excitement and love we already felt for her. We also picked out strollers, car seats, and all the other essentials we needed. Every decision was made with so much care and thought, imagining how it would all come together when Cece finally arrived. After reaching the 12-week mark, which felt like a significant milestone, Lucas and I decided it was time to share the news with our families. We wanted to do it in a way that felt special and personal, so we planned a small dinner at our place. We invited only our closest family members under the pretext of a casual gathering. No one had any idea what was coming, and we were so excited to see their reactions. The evening of the dinner arrived, and the house was filled with the warmth and chatter of family. As I looked around, I noticed that Lucas's younger brother Kyle had arrived with his girlfriend. I was a little surprised, to be honest. We had specifically mentioned that this was going to be a gathering of family members only, and it threw me off that he had brought a random woman without checking with us first. But knowing Kyle and his spontaneous nature, we decided not to make a fuss about it and just let it go. Kyle introduced his girlfriend Jasmine to everyone at the dinner. She was a divorcee with a child from her previous marriage, and it was obvious that she was significantly older than Kyle. They had apparently met at the gym recently and hit it off. Throughout the evening, both Kyle and Jasmine kept behaving like horny little teenagers. They kept grabbing each other, kissing, and making noises that were hard to ignore, especially in front of everyone. It was more than a little uncomfortable, and I could sense that I wasn't the only one who felt that way. Despite this awkwardness, I was determined not to let it derail the evening. As we all sat down for dinner, Lucas and I exchanged a glance, silently agreeing that it was time we stood up and got everyone's attention. "We have something to share with you all," Lucas said, his voice full of excitement. And with that, I brought out the collection of ultrasound pictures that I had been collecting. As I held them up for everyone to see, I announced with a smile, "We're pregnant." For a moment, there was silence as everyone looked at our faces, processing what we had just said. Comment below, I will tag you in part 2.